Dexter, we're ready to go live.
Okay, one moment. Welcome, and thank you for standing by. All participants are in a listen-only mode until the public comment section throughout today's presentation. To make a public comment at that time, please press *1 and clearly state your name for public comment introduction. I would like to now turn the conference over to our host, Nicole Wheelwright. Nicole, you may begin.
Go ahead, Mr. Genetti.
Okay, I would like to call this meeting to order at 6:03. Roll call, please.
Member Frank Parks.
Present.
Member Steve Cooley. Member Biliath Bengesa.
Present.
Vice Chairman Richard Beneke. Not here. Chair Baron Genetti.
Present.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez.
Here.
Okay. Action of any request for excused absence. Steve had already given us an excused absence. I don't know where Richard is. At this time, we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will put your hand over your chest, right hand, and begin. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands,
one nation,
nation,
under
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and
liberty,
justice.
and
just
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Are there any approval or adjustments to the agenda? Seeing that there's none, we'll go on. Anybody with a conflict of interest disclosure? Okay. Nicole, do we have any public comment items? Due to the circumstances, we are encouraging members of the public to maintain participation in our meetings by submitting any public comments via email or by teleconferencing in for phone-in comments. Please see the front of the agenda for specific directions. Nicole, do we have any public comment?
I have no written comments. Let me check with our operator to see if we have any speakers on the line. Operator?
I have no public comments at this time.
Okay. Since there are no public comments, we'll go to the action items. Number 1, approval of the minutes from our June 8th meeting. Are there any requests to speak?
I have no written comments. Do we have any speakers on the line?
I have no comments at this time.
Okay. Are there any comments from the committee? Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Some of those announcements were around taking what we've already been under here in Riverside County.
Thank you. So who made the motion? Okay, Julio made the motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, second the motion.
Frank, I'll get you the next time. That's
No
Bill
problem.
on second. Nicole, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Member Parks?
So approve.
Member Bengesa?
Present.
Do you approve that motion, Mr. Bengesa?
Present.
Is that an aye, a yes for the motion? Mr. Bengesa, can I have a yes or a no on the motion, please?
Second the motion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Genetti?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Okay. That's approved. Item number 2, fiscal year 2020 general fund and wastewater fund update through May 2020. It is recommended that the Finance and Audit Committee receive and the updated financial schedules. Staff report, Jeff, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So what you have is the May numbers. So now we've got 11 months out of 12 here. So we're moving along. We're getting pretty close to the end. And the good news is I've been able to reflect the numbers up slightly on both funds. And so our taxes are coming in a little bit higher on the general fund. Expenditures a little bit lower on wastewater fund, and I think I'm going to walk you through each of these schedules. I'll start with the general fund and take you through it briefly. I'll walk you through the taxes first of all. Our taxes, the last payment comes in June, and in fact, we have received that last payment. So the 5.7 million that you see under real property taxes is going to be pretty close to a final number, unless we get any final adjustments through the county. Personal property taxes is also a final number. We do not expect any new numbers, any new results coming in on that. We're getting near the end on the franchise fees. The 8.4 million is an estimate. We do have a little bit more yet to come in. The 5 million, which comes in, is the one-time, our one-time solid waste franchise fee, essentially. It's a retention fee for that contract. That's already in there. The 2.1 million related to that, which is their quarterly amount that they pay us, is also in there. What's left is a little bit of collections of some of our other franchise fees that we receive. And so the estimate there is about 8.4 million to end up that number. Sales tax, we still have a true-up. The last month is usually essentially a triple month. We end up getting some more in there. That one I'm really a little bit more edgy on because we're not going to get those final numbers in for a little while yet. And I really don't know. Last year, we got in a payment of over $1 million in that last payment of the year. I don't expect it to come in nearly as good this year. So it is an estimate. So I've got about a little under 5 million estimated there. That could be up or down by 100,000 or more. And so I'm kind of hedging on that one. The other taxes, the biggest thing is we get our final VLF that comes in, and that's the vehicle in lieu. Basically, it's an extension of property tax. And that last piece will be about 2.5 million, and that'll be coming in the last month of the year as well. Looking at permits, we have ticked up slightly from our earlier estimates, but still don't expect it to change much more than where we're at. Those are estimates that I've got there, but I think that it's not going to be too much more than what we've got there. Charges for services, you can see where we are there. There's nothing, no real big changes in those numbers. We do expect a little bit more to come in on our, sorry, my screen just keeps jumping on me. The public safety piece, because we end up collecting some money in from the schools and from other sources that help us fund some of our police officer work. So we do have some additional money that's going to come in near the end of the year on that. That's the only one that really jumps up much from the numbers you're looking at here. And then as we go down looking at expenditures, we do kind of expect to have some nice savings in expenditures. That's fairly typical for the city, having looked at the last few years. We tend to have a little bit of play in the budget on the operating costs. Here we think we're going to be a little bit under budget on utilities. And you can see the remainder of that. The place where probably the most under budget is really looking at our contractual services. And right now we are trending low. That is an estimate at 5.8 million. I'll be honest with you, I'm fairly new to the experience with the city here. And so how much comes in that final month? A lot of cities, it's a real big month. It's a double month. Here, I'm still waiting to see that. Having looked at last year, it's a bigger month, not quite a double month. So in any event, I'm waiting to see. The 5.8 might be a little high, might be a little low. But in any event, I think the 11.4 for operating costs is probably within 100 or 200,000 of where we're going to end up. As far as personnel costs, looking up just slightly. we are trending to have a savings of probably about $800,000, almost $1 million there. Again, fairly typical for the city. The biggest thing we usually have in the way of savings there is two things. One, we budget salaries at a full level, so vacant positions are budgeted at the full level, and sometimes they're filled at a little bit less than that. We also budget retirement at the full cost and health insurance at the full cost, meaning that if we have a position that's vacant, we will budget it at coming in at the highest cost rate for retirement versus the cheaper. You know, we have a classic rate, we have a pepper rate, and those are very different in the cost profile for the city. Similarly, if we have a position that's vacant, we will budget that at full cost for medical insurance, which means we will estimate that somebody is paying that they're insuring their whole family. When someone like me, for example, I came in with insurance from a retirement and I don't take the city's insurance at all. And so there's a fairly different profile that happens in those types of settings. Now, going forward to 21, one of the things we did to tighten up the 21 budget is we've trued that up. You will have a lot less play in the personnel services budget going into 21. We expect that this savings level of 800, 900,000 will be shrunk probably to a third of that. Next year's budget I expect to be a little bit tighter. And then looking down, the biggest thing that you see that hasn't happened yet is some of our transfers up above into the from CFD. So our big transfers, I'm back up on the revenue. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit tonight. Under the transfers under revenue, the biggest transfers we have are from gas tax, which comes in from the state. It comes in to support our streets program, maintenance program. And then the CFDs, which are brought in to support operations such as police department, administration, parks, things of that nature. So that hasn't happened yet. Most of the gas tax has been transferred over now. CFDs, we still have 3/4 to transfer over. Next year, we're going to be doing that quarterly, so you won't see this lag. And with that, if I go all the way down to the bottom of the general fund, right now we're tracking to have a surplus of around 6.3 million. As you recall, last month, I thought that was going to be closer to 5.8, 5.9. So that's good news. That's both a little bit of a kick up in our property tax, small kick up in some of the other fees and taxes, and then some savings in operating that are a little bit more than I thought. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Anyone have any questions? Council Member Carroll?
Thank you, Chair. Jeff, so we're still at a volatile point at the very last of the reporting year, though, because we don't know what's going to happen with the gas tax. We don't know what's going to happen with the sales tax. Basically, we don't know if anything's going to get held up with the vehicle license fees. I think we're clear on that, aren't we? So I'm kind of concerned that even though we're in 11 months behind us, even the 12th month, we might be getting in a little bit less than even a conservative estimate. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my biggest hesitation on the revenue side of the equation is really on the sales tax number. Like I said, last year we had almost it was about $1.2 million in that last month that we brought in sales tax. And what they do is they do an end of year true up. They true up the whole year. And we got a $1.2 million at the end of the year. Now, if we got that this year, we're currently sitting through 11 months. We're sitting at $4.2 million. That would bring us up to 5.4, which is only slightly below our budget, where we started the year. Having said that, I don't think we're going to get anywhere near 1.2 million. And I don't know what that number is going to be. That's my biggest concern. As far as the VLF, that I feel very confident in. It rides with the property tax. Property tax is coming in solid. I think that money, that's a good number. This year's gas tax, I feel very confident in because we've really received almost all of that. Next year is a little bit more iffy. The numbers that they've given us up until now have been pretty good numbers. They haven't dropped as far as we thought they would. So my biggest hesitation on the revenues really at this point for this fiscal year or for the one we just finished is really only sales tax.
What about the hotel tax?
Well, hotel tax, I have not estimated much coming in there, and I
Okay.
don't expect much to come in there. We did clean a few things up on hotel tax, and we got a little bit of a kick up that happened from some delays we were receiving. So you will see a little bit of an increase, but we're talking a few $1,000s.
Yeah, right.
The good news is the city is not heavily reliant on TOT. So even a 10, 15, 20% drop in that doesn't really hurt us too much.
Okay.
So at this point, the only revenue I'm really concerned about for the last fiscal year is sales tax, and that could either push us up to that $6.6 million surplus, or drop us down to the 5.8, 5.9. You know, I don't think it'll drop us that far. I think that's why I put the range at about 6.2 to 6.7.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Anybody else? Yes, Frank.
I have a couple of questions, clarifications. Under personnel, you have other expenses, and there's about a $450,000 increase from the budget. That might be 912.
Yeah, so that's it's kind of a catch-all, but what's in there is it's a lot of our ancillary costs associated with managing the personnel services budget. The biggest piece in there that amounts to that overage at excess is workers' comp costs, and predominantly those are in the police department. We have had, even pre-COVID, we've had pretty high workers' comp costs, and higher than we had budgeted. And that's about $300,000 of that increase at least. The remainder is just the overall costs of managing the other benefits and things of that nature.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay. Julio, do you have anything? Billa?
Yeah, on business licenses, the figure went up a little bit. What does that mean?
So we actually, that's one where my lack of history with the city proved to be a little bit of a downfall, as it was with my early permitting expectations. And so I'm learning and growing. I had estimated that we were going to get a much more significant default on the business licenses as a result of COVID. Our licensing period, predominantly when we collect the fees, is in May and June. So it's not linear. It doesn't come in through the year. So our renewal is May and June. And I estimated that we were going to get a much bigger hit to our budget out of COVID. More businesses were going to default, not pay their business license. Didn't turn out to be the case. So we did quite good.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Julio? Yes.
Yeah. So, just the property tax, the final payment that comes in June, is that from the December property tax that's coming in?
Yeah, so we that last payment comes in from their last assessment period. It comes in two pieces, and yeah, it would have been from December, absolutely.
Okay, so anything that might have been a result of the COVID, we won't see it until our first payment comes in.
No, you won't see that. I'll be honest with you. If COVID is going to hit your property tax, it won't hit. In honesty, it won't hit till fiscal year 22, because it wouldn't hit until this next tax roll, and then we would be a year out. So property taxes is a good year delay from when you actually take the hit. The good news is, as of last time I saw it, which was only 2 weeks ago, our property numbers are really doing good. We'll see now with the double dip that COVID's given us, whether that starts to crack that. It's hard to say, but right now and through last week, we're still actually climbing. and the sales both in Banning and here in Beaumont are still pretty good. So 2022 is if we start seeing a crack over the next 3 months, that's when I'll start looking at your long-term forecasts and really dropping those numbers.
Okay, so our biggest concern, COVID related, would be the sales tax.
Yeah, that one, and then I would say it would be your permitting and your business development activity. If COVID hits hard enough to cripple the construction sector, then you'll see a drop off on that piece as well.
But so far, you said those have been up.
So far, we're doing good. The construction activity is still going well. We've been talking to the developers, and they're not slowing down. And you know, I go by the village every day, and just went in the grocery outlet on Friday, and so. Yeah, I mean, you know, we have a movie theater that's going in, and movie theaters have been shut down mostly for the last several months. So they've got to be a little nervous and maybe not accelerating things, but it's still going up. And so that's pretty exciting. You know, I thought maybe maybe one like that, they might hold, but that hasn't happened. So that's good.
Good. And I like the quarterly transfers better. I think that'll be a little bit better for numbers to look at. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Agree with that. All right. Thank you.
I just have questions versus some of our expenses. Did you factor in the potential that since City Hall and some of our activities have been limited, that we may save some money on utilities and some of the contractual services associated with our operation?
Yeah, we definitely some of the savings are because we've actually reduced some operations. We haven't opened the pool this year. So far we're not going to be opening the pool this summer. And then the community center is reduced operations for this whole COVID period. It was mostly shut down. We have had some buildings and stuff running at lower clips as far as utilization. So I think there has been some savings in there. We've also had less miles traveled from diesel and things like that. People aren't traveling, so I think there's some savings that have been built throughout. And then we've built a lot of savings into next year's budget in order to balance it. In the contractual services, there's been a number of things that we reduced, including custodial services and things of that nature.
Okay. Good. I have no other questions. Do you want to do the?
Sure. I'll try and be a little
Wastewater?
briefer with the wastewater. It is a simpler budget. So if you look at that section, it's really simple. The revenues are really all in one big bucket. And that is the fees that we charge bi-monthly to residents and businesses that use the sewer system. And that is set up on a fee schedule. We do a fee assessment. They do a study, a survey. We set the fees. Right now it's set for the next few years to have a 5% increase year over year over the next few years. And so you will see a kick up coming in the next fiscal year. But for this fiscal year, we have 5 of 6 payments. And as you can see, it's at $8.4 million. We do expect that to be slightly over $10 million when we get the final payment in. So a little bit over budget, whereas if you had caught me 6 months ago, I would have thought we'd be slightly under budget. So that's good news. And then if I look at the expense side, we are trending to have a savings of anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000 in that range. And that is driven by benefit savings that we talked about, which is your health benefits and your retirement benefits predominantly. Those are the biggest pieces, being budgeted at a higher level than we're actually paying, like I described. And then also, we had some vacancies earlier in the fiscal year. We don't now, but well, I think we might actually have a new one. But we've not had a lot of vacancies, but we did some early in the fiscal year, and that's some of your salaries savings, and then the positions being costed out. Under operating, this has been a really I'll be honest with you, a little bit of a crapshoot. I have not been confident on where we were going to be on this throughout the year. And so a few months ago, I would have estimated that we'd be much higher and had even a slight deficit in this budget. If you remember 2 months ago, I was projecting we might be $100,000 to the bad. But this is the area where our savings have been in because we have not been spending as much as we thought. And your biggest savings is in contractual services. And we have a few other areas where we've saved some money. So at the end of it, I am estimating a surplus of about $367,000 with a range of 300 to 400 as my expected finish. We're still tying up some loose ends on a few projects in wastewater, so that number, that's where that variance comes in, where it could be off by $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 either direction from my estimate. So with that, I'm happy to try and answer questions. It's not, this expertise is a little bit less on the wastewater, but I'm getting better.
Thanks, Jeff. Please note, Mr. Beneke is arrived and is present. Okay, anybody have any questions for Jeff? Nobody? No. Okay. We need a motion to, let's see.
I think this is a receive and file.
A receive and file, yes. I need a motion to receive and file. That's what I was looking for.
So move.
Okay, Frank, second.
I second.
Second. Billith, thank you. Nicole, a roll call, please. Vote.
Member Parks?
Yes.
Member Bengesa?
Yes.
Vice Chair Richard Beneke?
Yes.
Chairman Janetti?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes,
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
I may have made an error here. I don't remember. Did I ask for any public comment?
We did not. I do not have any written requests. Operator, do we have any speakers on the line?
We currently have no public comments at this time.
Okay. Thank you. My mistake, but I'm covered. Okay. We'll now go over the subcommittee updates. Richard, do you have any update for us?
No, as stipulated in our minutes, due to COVID-19, I think these have kind of been put on hold for a while. I don't have anything.
Okay. The other issue that we're looking at, and I think, Jeff, you want to talk about the investment policy that you're working on?
Sure. We have been working internally on the investment policy. We intend to bring that to the Finance Committee next month. That's my hope. I feel confident we'll be able to do that. And then ultimately to the council thereafter, the second meeting in August is at least our goal. The biggest thing we're working on there is to, one, make sure that the parameters are clearly set. You know, the California Department of Finance, they set boundaries. There's regulations, there's requirements on what you can and cannot invest in. So that's the guardrails, if you will. And then what we'll be going from there is providing the committee with some options, if you will, to tighten those guardrails and recommendations to the council. Typically, what the finance laws let you do is a little bit more than most councils are comfortable doing, because you could expose the city to a little bit more risk in their investment. So that's the biggest part of the discussion. And then how we do it, passive versus active investing, knowing that we don't have the clear expertise here in the finance department or the bandwidth. We'll probably be trying to press for a more passive investment process and with using some guidance from expertise and paying for that in order to make sure we don't mess up. So you'll be seeing that hopefully in next meeting.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Carroll. You're on mute. Nancy, you're on mute.
okay. I thought I undid it. Thank you. Jeff, and this is for the chair and the committee. When I was treasurer before I came to council, I attended advanced municipal workshops for treasurers on investments. And there is a website for the Municipal Treasurers Association that has on their website all of the presentations that were done on what the recommendations and what the restrictions are for city investments so that you don't get into a high-risk area. And it's all on their website. After they do the presentation or have their conferences, they post everything on their website. So I would suggest maybe that you at least take a look at that website and see what they have archived on their website, because it may help you get together your thoughts and your recommendations a little bit more quickly.
Great. I appreciate that. That's good guidance. Yeah, we've been looking at GFOA and CSNFO, but I don't know if we've gone there. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other comments? I think right now they are the only two subcommittees that are active right now, Richard's committee and then the investment, because we've gone over the RFP process and we have gone over the grants process. There were two that were holding in abeyance because of the priority of those, and now with everything else going on, we're going to hold off on the other two. Future agenda items. Does anyone have any future agenda item suggestions that they think would be appropriate?
Yeah, am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay. I came in on the tail end. We had some technical difficulties getting me hosted on the meeting. I apologize for that. As we close out our 1920 budget, I guess Jeff he gave a pretty good thorough rundown on where we're at after 11 months. And as we close it out, looking like we're going to have between 300,000 and 400,000, a little bit of overage there, which is good news, I guess. But for our next meeting, I would like, I don't know if you're playing this, Jeff, or not, but I'd like to see a very complete, comprehensive closeout on that budget, if at all possible. And what I mean by that is I'd like to see what we budgeted for the year and actually where we ended up for the year as a report. Now, your budget may show that, and it may not. It may be, you may be getting into the new budget with your report next month. But I was kind of hoping we get a look at where we're at as a closeout budget in terms of the various categories and how they were budgeted and where we're short and where we're over at the end of the year. Kind of like a final ending balance so we could take a look as we go forward into the new year.
Yeah, just to redirect, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. Are you looking for a little bit more detail in that, like more down into the line items, or are you just looking for more analysis? I definitely will be providing the June numbers at the next meeting, and it will be near final. We make a lot of adjustments at the end of the year. There's journal entries. The auditors come in and they propose some changes, so it's not final. It'll be near final, depending on auditor adjustments. And we don't close out the fiscal year until the end of August. We allow bills to be paid and things and journal entries to be made to close out the year. So it'll be near final, but you'll have that for sure. My question is, are you looking for more detail?
Yeah, basically I am looking for more detail. I'd like to see where this extra money came from, number one. It looks like personnel is one area that you did reference in your budget report. Also, your operating costs, and I'd like to know where those operating costs are at.
I can provide more detail in the final report for the year. Absolutely, I can do that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, Council Member Carroll.
Thank you. Can we have as a item on the next agenda a little mini update on how Jeff feels the audit is progressing? And when we do that, if we put it on the agenda, I would like to get every meeting just a little mini update on how the audit is going, because meeting the timeline is so critical to us this year. We slipped last year when we thought we weren't going to, and we really don't want to do it this year again. So if we could maybe between now and the end of the year, every meeting just get a little mini update. And so we can't take that as an action item because it's not on this agenda, so we can't all agree to that. But if we put an update on the audit on the next agenda, then maybe we can talk about it and consider doing a monthly mini update from Jeff.
That's a great suggestion and request. Do we need to vote on that to add that to the agenda, or can we just accept it? Can somebody help me technically here?
I don't think, you don't need to vote on it. It's recommendations from members of the committee.
Okay. I think it's a great idea, and Jeff, for us to look at it, because that was one of our biggest concerns when we hired the new auditing firm, was the timeliness of them.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that.
Super. Anybody else with any recommendations for agenda items? Okay. Treasury review is pretty simple here. We have now seen 11 months of the budget. It looks like we're going to have a surplus in there in the range of 6.3 on the general fund and about 360,000. But I have the ranges here for the wastewater. Also, next month we will have the revised investment policy that Jeff and his team has been working on. So that's the key items that we had tonight. With that, I would like to see the finance director. Comments?
Yeah, so thank you, appreciate it. I just kind of wanted to give the committee a bit of an update, and for the council members, this might be a bit of a repeat, but as you know, we've been in this COVID environment since March, and very shortly after that started, FEMA came out and provided some guidance that they were going to be able to provide funding to the various different governmental entities. So we have been tracking FEMA expenses. FEMA expenses are typically things that directly respond to the emergency. So it would be, for this particular emergency, it would be buying PPE. It would be like masks and sanitizers. It would be the work we do that directly helps us mitigate the impacts of the virus. It would be including things like Zoom, like these meetings here, this cost to have these types of meetings. So we've been gathering those costs. Right now, our costs, and you can also do any kind of overtime that goes to support a COVID response, which primarily for us has been in the PD and the police department. So far to date, we've got about $67,000 to $68,000 in hard costs and about another $10,000 in overtime payroll costs that are in the FEMA range. I expect that we have some additional costs we're looking at that could be another $10,000 to $15,000. Roughly thinking we're going to end up $90,000 to $100,000 with our FEMA application. Then we have CARE, which is the new funding we've been talking about. This is coming in from the federal government through the state, and the city is eligible for up to $635,000 there. The biggest key there is that this kind of goes a little beyond what FEMA would allow. It allows a bit more of a robust expenditure profile in that while we can pay for Zoom, the software costs associated with conducting these meetings can't really pay for hardware. I can't pay for a new server or for laptops and PCs. Now I can pay for some of those types of things under CARE. So I can cover some of the costs that I couldn't cover under FEMA. Additionally, to do physical distancing, we're looking at having to do a little bit of retrofitting, putting in some dividers, doing some things to space out employees more effectively so that we can work in a safer environment. We've also had to retrofit how we bring the public into City Hall in a safe environment, including getting some things to take their temperature with their. If you guys haven't seen that, it's pretty nifty. When you come in, you'll see it. It's pretty cool. But we've got that. We've been putting in some plexiglass and a variety of different retrofits that haven't been altogether that costly. But the good news is we can cover those costs under the CARE Act where it doesn't fit with FEMA. FEMA CARE Act can also cover the 25% that FEMA doesn't cover. FEMA will cover 75% of your costs, but CARE will cover those other 25%. So that's, and then CARE is being looked at by the city council for a number of other purposes, potentially to help out local businesses that have been hit by the COVID-19 emergency, potentially to look at maybe helping out some residents that have struggled to maintain their monthly bills. And then lastly, we'll be looking at making sure that we don't give any money back because that's our job. Is to make sure that we get the money for the purposes that the city needs it for. And spoiler alert is we can look at the dollars that are left over to fund some of our additional PD salaries. So the good news is we've been working on this pretty hard, and we will have the ability to allocate the full $635,000. And we're going to be going back to council next week with a more detailed plan.
Thank you, Jeff.
You bet.
I hope
Oh, by the
everybody.
way, our auditors are in right now, so I'm not going to give you an update because that's next month. You have to wait, but they're in right now. First glance, we did well.
Okay. I thought this update Jeff had mentioned to me is important for you. We discussed it at the city council meeting for the city council. And I thought it's good for you to understand this funding that we have to cover some of these added expenses. Okay, well, I thank everybody for their participation and everything. And this meeting is adjourned. I'm going to adjourn this meeting as of 6:44.
Okay.
Thank